Hello, it's Fiona Morris here of nourishandflourish.co.uk. I've come to wish you a very happy birthday, and if you are not Chinese or celebrate Chinese New Year, you may think I'm a little bit strange, but here in Penang it is the 7th day of the Chinese New Year. Actually, it's the 7th day of the Chinese Lunar New Year wherever you are in the world, and that means, according to Chinese tradition, that it's the day of the human, or the birthday of all mankind. So it's considered everybody's birthday today. It's another reason to celebrate. We've had the Chinese New Year. Actually, Chinese New Year lasts for 15 days from the new moon to the full moon. So we're on day 7. And I've been learning a little bit more about Chinese New Year while I've been here. And yesterday we went out with some friends of my parents who are of mixed nationalities, some Malay, some Indonesian, some Chinese Malay, some Scottish and some Irish, so a real blend of people. And we were doing the Yi Sang celebration, and what that is a traditional platter that you have over the Chinese New Year of little crispy, colourful crispy crackers, sometimes with some sesame seeds. I think there's some sesame oil through there, possibly a bit of honey. I'm not quite sure what the ingredients are, but it's a sort of sweet, seeded, crispy, and they put raw fish, and it tends to be salmon, so a bit like a sushi. And what you do is you go in with your chopsticks. The whole group of people will go in with their chopsticks and toss the ingredients into the air. And the higher you toss it, the more luck and abundance that you have for the coming year. So we did that last night, and that was quite fun. It's actually a really delicious dish as well. And we also enjoyed quite a hearty feast of Chinese food, which was delicious. So I hope you are celebrating Chinese New Year wherever you are. I've been doing a little bit of research into Chinese New Year just to kind of understand a little bit more about the culture and traditions around it. And I found something which I wanted to share with you. Being a herbalist, obviously I'm drawn to anything that is nature inspired or plant inspired, and what I discovered is that on the 7th day of the Lunar New Year is a day where in Japan they have a tradition of creating a 7-herb spring soup. So it's actually a rice porridge, but they add 7 different herbs, and the reason that they tend to do this on the 7th day is because they're celebrating quite heavily and eating a lot of rich foods generally. The 7th day is the day of rest, as is common in many cultures. Actually, we think of Sundays in the Western tradition as a day of rest. So according to the Chinese creation myth of how the world came into being, the first 6 days, the goddess, I'm trying to remember what her name was, I think I wrote it down somewhere, Nawu, that's probably, Nuwa, sorry. The goddess Nuwa created animals on the first 6 days. So I've got the list here. Day 1, she created chickens. Day 2 was dogs. Day 3 was boar or pigs. I'm getting my numbers mixed up. Day 3 was boar or pigs. Day 4 was sheep. Day 5 was cows or oxen. Day 6, horses. And on the 7th day, the goddess created humans. So when they're doing their celebrations, in Japan anyway, in Japan they actually don't celebrate Chinese New Year in the way they do here in Penang or perhaps in China. They celebrate it according to the solar calendar. So interesting how cultures and traditions have migrated to different parts of the world, and they've taken on their own a life of their own. So in Japan they celebrate the 7th day celebration on the 7th of January. So they go by the solar calendar, which was changed when they decided to take on the solar calendar. But yeah, what was particularly interesting was the herbs that they used. So I've got the list of herbs for anybody who's interested in cooking or who's interested in herbs. This may be of interest to you. If not, feel free to tune out. So the first one was a herb called sari. It's called sari in Japan. I think it's also referred to as sari in other Asian countries, also known as Java water dropwort. Now, if you are a Western based forager, you may be recoiling in horror at the thought of somebody including a water dropwort plant in a porridge, because this is considered a very poisonous and in many cases lethal herb to put in. Or certainly the hemlock water dropwort, which is in the water dropwort family, is a lethal one and was used in ancient times to poison people and kill them. So why would you put a water dropwort plant into a healthy healing porridge? Well, the specific plant that they use in the water dropwort family is the Onanthe javanica plant, which is also known as sari or Java water dropwort. So do not put any other type of water dropwort. You would have to be very clear on what type of water dropwort you're putting in. So this is also known as Japanese parsley or Chinese celery. And again, these are common names for other plants which can also be confused. So make sure you know exactly what you're making if you are attempting to make the 7 herb spring porridge. Rice porridge that they make. The second herb is shepherd's purse. Shepherd's purse is very commonly used as a medicinal remedy in Western herbal medicine. In Japanese culture, they use shepherd's purse as part of the feast of the 7 herbs. This is known as a hemostatic. It's often used in women's health issues to help support menstrual balancing, but it's also very rich in nutrients, and so everybody would eat this as part of their 7 herb combination. There's a herb called cudweed, again not one that is used very often in the West, but I did a bit of research about its medicinal. Obviously it's used in a culinary way. In East Asia it's used in both savoury and sweet dishes as a garnish or an extra addition to their cooking, and in Vietnam it's used as a remedy for coughs. So it's more native to the East, so it's not one that we would tend to use very much in Europe or in other Western countries. Then there was chickweed. Now chickweed is one that herbalists do know and love very well. Chickweed is a really good one for cooling dermatitis and skin conditions, eczema, psoriasis, things like that. Then there's a herb called nipplewort. This is one that grows in Europe, but I'm not familiar with its medicinal use. If any herbalists are watching this, do you use nipplewort? The name would suggest that it's quite beneficial for nipples. I'm not sure in what way. When you have the word wort at the end of a word in plant names, it tends to refer to its medicinal use at some point in time, sometimes so ancient that it's become lost. It's quite an interesting thing to look into the names that have been the common names of plants, and it gives you a bit of a clue on ancient usage of that particular plant. And then the final 2 herbs that are used in the 7 herb spring soup are turnips, turnip greens actually, rather than the root, which is interesting. Obviously in the West, well certainly in Scotland, we're familiar with turnips in our neeps and tatties with our haggis, which is often eaten at Scottish traditional times, festive times. But in Japan, they use the greens of the turnip, and there's different use of the turnip all over the world. So that's an example of that. And then there's the daikon radish, which is also added to the soup, which we are familiar certainly of with radishes as a nutritious food. So those are the 7 ingredients that go into the rice porridge at the Japanese Feast of the 7 Herbs, which actually isn't today. It's on the 7th of January, but I was interested to find out about it when I was researching the meaning of the 7th day of Chinese New Year, which is also known as everybody's birthday. And according to Chinese cosmology, the goddess molded humans from clay on the 7th day. And according to some Chinese traditions, actually the 7th day is considered the first day of the year. So we've had so many New Years already. We've had the 1st of January New Year. We've had the new moon, which is the Chinese New Year. The 7th day of January, which is the official New Year. I would also consider the beginning of spring, so around the 21st of March, as a time to celebrate the new year, being the end of winter. And yesterday actually was Imbolc, which is a Celtic festival of celebrating St. Bridget or Bride, and that marks the halfway point between winter and spring, and is celebrated with fire. Actually, in Chinese tradition, fireworks are actually being lit throughout Chinese New Year, but especially on the 7th, it's considered the day that the goddess created fire. I've been doing quite a bit of research, and some of it says some things and some others, so I believe that is true. Do correct me if there's any experts out there listening to me and thinking, oh no. But yeah, so a day to celebrate fire in both, well, yesterday was a day to celebrate the fire, and certainly a light being lit on a candle between winter and the beginning of spring. Really a day of celebration. Every day is a celebration if you look for a reason to celebrate, but I'm here today to celebrate the 7th day of Chinese Lunar New Year and everybody's birthday. So I shall leave you with that. If you are celebrating Chinese New Year, do share with me your celebrations. Where are you? What are you doing? What traditions are you following to celebrate the New Year? Or it may not be Chinese New Year. It may be a Celtic celebration. It may be, I don't know. Tell me where you are and what you're doing to celebrate today. Okay, bye-bye.